No, 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 no. Yes, sir. Okay. What's going on, everybody? Got the Sam Kinnison. What's going on, brother? Good to be doing this with you, man. It was a pretty good choice for a weekend to because last night, man, like I fortunately caught the tough finale, and that's where I jumped on. And the only one I missed some of was Zhang and Lemos, but Jesus, what a card! This is probably the best card I think I've seen in. I mean, for a long time there's been a lot for the last 10 years, and then the history of it. I'm sure probably better than I do, but where you so you had a little bit of delays, and that's that definitely happens with me doing these shows. But I'm glad you could still jump on today. I never like to do the cliche things, but the immediate reaction from what you saw this weekend with what you caught with these fights.
Yeah, it's a great UFC card. Definitely one of the best of the year. I thought, of course, Sean O'Malley shocked the world. I wasn't expecting that. I don't think a lot of people were expecting that. I know some people made the pick, but O'Malley knocking out Aljamain Sterling in round 2 definitely sent shockwaves throughout the community. Zhang Weili, holy shit, that girl is a problem. She might be the best female fighter of all time when it's all said and done. She completely dominated. I think she landed 300 strikes to the Lemos' 30, which is, of course, that's crazy. Neil Magny and Ian Gary showed out. He didn't get the finish, but he performed well. It was definitely a great card all around. Even the prelims, the tough fights, Andre Petrosky and Gerald Mearshot, a lot of great fights on this card. And Damon Blackshear, too. I got to give my boy some shot. Damon Blackshear took the fight on a couple days' notice. Second fight in 7 days. I mean, even though he didn't get the win, all respect to him.
Yeah, and what I saw from the tough finale, it looked good for Gibson. I mean, he really didn't go out there and have a bad display because even during the fight, I know that Cormier and Rogan were saying that it kind of reminded them of Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin. That was the one that I was definitely glad to see. But Gary, I mean, just you talk about like from front to back dismantling. And you could see with Magny's leg, I think it started in the second round really deteriorating. And that toughness of that guy, you feel for Neil because he loses to Ian, he's not a hype train though. Ian Gary last night proved he is the real issue for people in that weight class. So, I mean, now what are some of the matchups you're looking to see?
Well, Ian Gary, also I just want to say real quick, Cody Gibson did get the contract. He got $50,000, so that's great to see that even though he lost the fight, he still got the contract, still got $50,000. That's great.
Yes.
Ian Gary looked great. He continues to impress. He was a hype train at first, but now beating Neil Magny, I mean, Neil Magny is the welterweight all-time wins leader in UFC history. Like, nobody has won more in this division than Magny, so to beat him in the fashion that he did it definitely made a statement. He called out Wonder Boy. He wants that fight with Stephen Thompson, which is funny because they're like kind of friends. They both do karate combat together. But it seems like Thompson isn't interested in the fight. It seems like he already declined it like within like an hour of the call out. So I don't know if that one will happen, but I mean, that would be a fun one to see, a striking battle. Ian Gary wants to fight a striker next before he gets in there with the wrestlers because there's so many wrestlers in the welterweight division that are so great. So yeah, I mean, I would like to see the fight with Jeff Neal get rebooked. That's who he was supposed to fight this weekend. Jeff Neal had to pull out due to an injury. Ian Gary was wearing some shirt with Jeff Neal's mugshot on it, so there's definitely some beef brewing. Jeff Neal's dad called out Ian Gary and shit, so that's definitely a fight I'd like to see next.
God, that's the shades of KJ Noons and Nick Diaz back in the day with KJ Noons' dad getting at Nate, but I was happy to see the Ian just looked, and I know that he was he's going to catch some shit for reaching over but just when he was reaching over the cage, it shows how long he is. And it's such a hard matchup because he is kind of similar to Wonder Boy, where they've trained together, and he's got that sort of, when he is striking, I can see a lot of Wonder Boy in that. So it's just going to be interesting to see where he goes from here. But I do agree that I think Jeff is the next fight for him. And that's, where does that leave Wonder Boy? Where does that leave that? There's so much coming up. I'm excited about this year, like more than I've ever been going into the winter with fights, because I was expecting to see by now that Conor would be coming back and doing something like around January or anything, but there's not been any date nailed down for that. You have John Jones and Stipe. Is there one that for you really is standing out on your calendar, at least for the rest of this year?
For me, it's definitely Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi, the rematch. The first fight was complete domination from Islam. I think it's going to be a little bit of a different fight. I think Charles Oliveira said that he could show up that night. He wasn't feeling himself the whole day. And that type of stuff happens in this crazy fight game. Like, you could have the best 3-month camp. You could train so hard, but we're all human at the end of the day. And we all have those days where we wake up and we're not feeling ourselves. It's not a good day. You saw that with even Dariush versus Oliveira when Dariush fought Oliveira just in June 2 months ago. So I think that's going to be a good fight. Stylistic matchup is crazy. Like the submissions from Charles, the submissions from Islam, the Sambo, the wrestling of Islam, the Muay Thai from Charles. So that's definitely the number one fight for me on my calendar for this year.
Yeah, I mean, somebody was talking about, I saw they were saying, it might have even been a comment on a page, but I remember somebody talking about how there's kind of this cycle going of, Chandler fights Gaethje fights Poirier, all these different fights. But I mean, Charles, make no mistake, after losing that fight, still is just an elite fighter. And that one, I am very curious to see, because I want Charles to win. It's nothing against Islam. It's just I've seen Charles fight for a long time. I think the first time I saw him fight actually was against Max Holloway way back. And it's such an interesting style, because somebody was saying that they think it's comparable to Tony and Khabib when they were trying to book that, because Tony's just this crazy guy on the ground when you get there, and the style of smothering that's what I call that style with Islam and Khabib, is just smothering. They get out there and apply that pressure. Do you think it's going to be, do you see them jumping up in weight? Because I don't think I don't expect him to jump to 170.
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe in the future, he's still young, years down the line. But for right now, I feel like him and Charles will both stay at 155. I think if either of them would move up in the future, I mean, whoever wins the title, of course, is staying at 155 to keep that title. But I could see Charles moving up to 170 to fight just to have some fun fights. Maybe, I mean, Nate Diaz isn't in the UFC now, but maybe if he came back, or Dustin Poirier wanted to run that one back at 170, something like that. But for right now, I think both of them, they're both big guys, but they make the cut to lightweight, and they neither of them tend to miss weight. I know Charles Oliveira missed weight by 0.1 in that fight with Gaethje, but yeah, I think they both stay at 155. They're two of the best, if not the two best. I believe personally that they are the two best lightweight fighters on the planet. Oh,
I agree. Yeah, and I mean, it's just so interesting now with these, with Daz and all these cards that, I mean, can you imagine them doing a card where they try and fit Conor, Nate, and Jake onto something like that? Because I'm expecting anything these days, but I mean, I don't see anybody challenging Islam at 155 right now other than Charles and Volk, and that's very clear. But yeah, I can't really see. I don't think Islam's going to try and move up. I think that it'll probably end up being that Charles, if he wins, I mean, there's you could argue that he fights Gaethje, but do you think that's the path that he should go on?
I think if Charles loses, then it's more likely that he moves up, because if he loses, then it's 2 losses to the champion. It would probably be another 2 years before he gets another shot if he continues to win. That's a big if, of course. So, and he's older. Charles Oliveira is older than a lot of people think. Well, actually, he's younger than people think, because he's been in the UFC for like 11 years now, since like 2011, 2012, and he's still only in his early 30s. So, he still has a lot of time left. He still has a lot of course, gas in the tank. I can see how he's performed in recent years. But I think if Charles were to lose, there's a good chance that he's a big guy that he moves up to 170, because he's, of course, not in a great position to get another title shot at 155 if he were to lose. And I would love to see him fight some of these guys at 170, like Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, guys like that. Like, who wouldn't want to see Kamaru Usman versus Charles Oliveira? Like, I would love to see that fight.
Yeah, I mean, because, I didn't, for some reason, I was kind of surprised when Nate ended up fighting Leon, but that's when I realized, yeah, this guy deserves the title shot. And that was an interesting fight. So, maybe Leon and Islam, I mean, God, that would be such an explosive fight to see. But I don't know. It's just, so interesting. I really hope that Jones and Stipe, that's going to get anybody. But I want people to watch Colby and Leon, because that's going to tell a lot about it's interesting right now where 170 affects 155, and where it was, people used to just, weight classes have evolved so much. But at 170, do you see Kamaru? I mean, where do you think he fits into that division?
I wonder who he's going to fight, because he wanted to fight Hamzat so badly. He was literally in Dana White's office calling Dana White saying Hamzat, and they booked Hamzat against Costa at middleweight. I think the next fight, a fight to make, I don't know if it's going to happen next, right? But one fight that I would like to see for Kamaru Usman is Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat Rakhmonov has looked deadly, insane in all of his fights. His sister now is, I think she's on Dana White Contender Series. She's going to try to get into the UFC here soon. But that's nice. One fight. I think Usman, I mean, his knees, it depends on how his knees hold up, but like, he still has it. He's still one of the best welterweights of all time. I don't know. Maybe they gave him like a little bit of a tune fight, since he's lost 2 in a row to the champion. Maybe they gave him a little bit like someone ranked in the 10 to 15 range. But I mean, him versus Shavkat would be fireworks. I would love to see that one too. Maybe even Wonder Boy. Maybe Stephen Thompson versus Kamaru Usman. That would be a good one. Because
it's kind of similar in 135, that division. Where do you see Merab and all these people? It's going to be so good going into next year. So I really don't think they're going to hurt that much with Conor not fighting in 2023, because, that's early next year, and there's going to still be, where does Sean go, of course, after winning last night? Is it going to be, I don't know. For Wonder Boy, though, yeah, it's such an interesting situation, because that division is just stacked right now. I mean, do you think that, do you expect, if Hamzat gets a win his next fight, where does he go?
Hamzat might get a title shot. If he wins his next fight versus Costa, I would assume he gets a title shot with Israel Adesanya. If Adesanya beats Strickland and Hamzat versus Costa, I think there's a good chance that Hamzat skips the line and gets that title shot instead of Duplessis. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And then for Conor, I honestly, if I were to guess and make a prediction right now, I think Conor McGregor, I think they're going to hold him and Michael Chandler until UFC 300. I think they're going to, because say he can fight in February, say the fight's going to be in February, UFC 298, 299, whatever, why not just hold Conor McGregor, the face of the UFC, a guy who's bigger than the UFC himself? Why not hold the main event of UFC 300, the biggest event in the company's history? I think that makes a lot of sense. So I would guess it's going to be Colby versus Leon in December, and then Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler at UFC 300.
I'm so interested also to see what they end up doing for co-mains for Leon and Colby, because, there's going to be, they're smart about their security now, but it's just, there's so many fights that need to happen. And I don't get me wrong, I love the BMF stuff, because it does bring hype to the sport, but it's like with Dustin and Justin, yeah, there's situations where there's a clear contender, and then there's kind of the guys on the outside looking in. But I don't think I don't know. I'm not confident about Connor and Justin coming together. I think they've got to commit to Chandler for sure. But if Connor is to do boxing eventually, what avenue do you think he's going to take? Is that going to be KSI? Because God only knows what happens with, and Dennis also. Your picks for the best internet fight of all time, Dennis and Logan.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I mean, Dylan Dennis he does anything he can to stay in the spotlight, stay in the limelight, and get attention. And this is just another way for him to get attention. I would be willing to bet a lot of money that Dylan Dennis is not set. I don't think he's ever gonna fight again. And listen, I hear good things about the guy. He trains at Tiger Showman, so guys like Shane Burgos, Rob Riccio, and a bunch of great guys up there in that gym in New Jersey. And I hear nothing but good things about him. He's a good teammate. He's fun to train with. He's a good fighter, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, I think he's a dickhead. Like, I don't like him at all because he does everything for attention. And, like, he's not, like, a real true mixed martial artist. So, like, I will never watch anything that he's a part of. And I'll never really be a fan of his. I don't think he's going to fight Logan Paul. And Conor calling out KSI, I think it's the same thing. I mean, I'm a Conor McGregor fan, but like I don't think him and KSI would ever get in there together. I think it's just all a money grab for just attention.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I don't really want to see. I think Conor fighting KSI, if that does happen, would be better after Conor just settles what he's doing in the UFC, because he's talking about the Nate trilogy, and I want to see him. Obviously, just talking about Chandler. We hope that is going to be by 300. It's interesting, but I mean, they've got to have something big where it puts the pressure on Jake Paul now. If he goes in there in MMA and he loses, do you think that they're going to have a rematch in the cage, or would you expect it to be in boxing again?
With Jake Paul and Nate Diaz?
Yeah, with those two.
I think it would end. I think that since Jake Paul beat him in boxing and now they're going to fight in MMA, I think Nate Diaz is going to beat him, and then that's going to be the end of that. Because where do you do the rematch? They each won in their own realm, so it kind of just like it's going to go the way it's expected. But who were we just talking about? KSI. I think KSI is just getting bigger and bigger by the day. And I think that we're going to see Conor versus Chandler. We're going to see him finish the trilogy with Nate, and hopefully, I hope we'll see Conor versus Justin Gaethje. And those 3 fights will probably cap off Conor's amazing career. And then maybe, he'll go and do those celebrity boxing matches and have some fun and make some more money.
Do you think Floyd is going to hang it up soon?
I think Floyd's done, yeah. He's only doing exhibition matches at this point. I think he's doing this rematch with, like, John Gotti III or whoever that, like, they had that fight and then John Gotti went crazy. I'm pretty sure they're booking that rematch for, like, this October or November. But I don't think Floyd will ever compete. And, like, he's never going to risk the 0 on his record. Like, Floyd's claim to fame is that he retired undefeated and he made a bunch of money. So I don't think he's ever going to risk that now that he's in his mid-40s. I think he'll just keep having fun and do what he does best, which is make money and not take damage.
In boxing, do you see do you have a clear cut pound for pound, as much as because probably more about the combat side of it, but
I think my pound for pound would honestly be Terrence Crawford after that last fight. I mean, there's definitely a couple people that you can put in that conversation. Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, what's his name? Gervonta Davis, even some other guys too. There's a good 5 or 6 guys at the top that you can all make an argument for. But after Crawford did that to Spence, a lot of people thought Spence was going to win, and he literally just gave him the biggest beatdown. One of the biggest beatdowns I've seen in boxing, and that's against like one of the best boxers in the world. So honestly, that one fight put him at number 1 for me.
Yeah, I'm impatient with Fury for sure, but that's it's similar to the feeling I had when he beat Wilder, where it was just like, I want Crawford to chill for a little while, take in the fact that he is, because that was just perfection in boxing. I think that's going to rank up there as one of the best performances ever easily. But with him, I mean, it's, now people are making the comparisons to Floyd for who's the best ever. Do you see what do you think is going to happen with Fury after this thing with Ngannou? Because they're definitely going to have their first fight and make a ton of money. Happy about that, but it's kind of similar to how I was feeling with Jake and Tommy fighting, where I was like, all right, you're paid, cool, but I want to watch the competitive ones. Do you see Fury taking on? When do you think the date would be if he fought Usyk?
I don't know. I mean, Fury, he's another guy that talks a lot, just like all these guys do. Like, he's talked about retiring, then he's talked about boxing this guy, now he's boxing Francis Ngannou.
Like Brett Favre.
I know that hardcore boxing fans aren't happy about them booking Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou. They want to see Fury defend the throne against guys like Anthony Joshua and others. And I'm not sure that fight's ever going to happen. Like, he's talked about retirement in the past. He's a little bit older now, Tyson Fury. I think he might just defeat, if he fights Francis and wins, I think he might just retire after that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, God, it's so crazy to think that there is the legitimate talk of Fury's retirement, because the first press conference I ever watched of his was against Klitschko, but I knew his name before that, but I didn't know the name. I knew the face only. And to see him where he's at now, I mean, I don't knock him for taking a fight with Ngannou, because it's going to get him paid. I think Fury's going to be fine as far as his image goes going forward, because he's just too electric a guy. And that's where I like Tommy Fury coming in and, trying to, God bless him, help the name if, they really need more of it. But do you ever see Fury doing one of those cards? I think he's made for the celeb boxing after he, other than like Ngannou, because Ngannou's actually like legit fighter, like a KSI or something like that.
I could definitely see that happening. I mean, I think Fury would be open to it. I think, to make money and to maybe not take as much damage in an exhibition boxing match after his career's end, I think we might definitely see that happen. It's more so who the heck is going to get in the ring with that huge mountain of a man? Who's going to get in the ring with that one of the heavyweight best boxers of all time? Like, who's going to fight Fury? I mean, there's definitely some people out there that would do it, but we would need, because most of the celebrities boxing or the athletes and stuff, they're not heavyweights. They're all like just regular sized human beings. They're not like 6'9", 300 pounds. So I don't know who it would be. Maybe like a former NFL player gets in there with Fury or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe like a former boxer. Like, I would fucking love to see Bob Sapp get knocked out by Fury, or Butterbean, if you remember Butterbean.
Oh yeah,
that would be pretty cool.
Wasn't that the one that I think Johnny Knoxville was fighting in early Jackass days? It's just those events are, God bless them, taking a life of their own on, and I wish them success with it. It's just, I'm one of those people that's maybe called traditionalist, whatever, but I like to see these fighters finish their career out against competitive people. Because imagine, if Michael Bisping would have not ended up fighting Rockhold and getting the belt later on in his career, and he was like, no, I'm going to go take on, who was a star at that time, like Lil Wayne or something like that. It's like, no, I'd rather see, okay, Frank Gore was interesting, and Adrian Peterson, because, they're athletes who train. But like Nate Robinson, there's some of them that just, it's probably going to end in a disaster. But I don't know. For my pick for that's an interesting call for Fury if he ever was to do the celeb boxing route. But I gotta say, it's probably going to be. I don't see it going the distance with Fury and Ngannou. I do think he'll get the knockout. You do think it's going to be retirement for him after that one?
Bro, who knows? I think Ngannou has a better chance than most people are giving it. Like, I'm not saying I'm picking Ngannou, but I think Ngannou can knock him out. Ngannou can knock out any human being on the face of the planet. All it takes is one. I don't know. I think we're going to have to wait and see how that fight goes before we know what the future holds for Fury. Because if he gets knocked out by Ngannou, I'm pretty sure he's going to try to get that rematch, and I'm pretty sure Ngannou would give it to him. So that would be crazy. I mean, I've seen crazier. I've seen Sean O'Malley knock out Aljamain Sterling last night. I saw Leon Edwards knock out Kamaru Usman 30 seconds left. Just last week at Bellator, I saw this kid Lucas Brennan, one of my good friends. He's 9-0 now, son of former UFC fighter Chris Brennan. He was losing. He was a huge favorite going into the fight against another guy I'm friends rounds with Weber Almeida. He was losing. He lost the first 2 rounds. There's a minute left. He's about to lose his undefeated record, all the hype he has behind him, and he gets a flying knee to the head knockout with a minute left. So
let's go.
Crazy shit happens in the sport. Yeah, it was dope. Crazy shit happens in the sport. Of course, in the comments, B. Cunny wants the Usyk versus Fury. That is the fight to make after. That was the fight to make before the Ngannou fight. It'll still be the fight to make. It will still be always there. So I think Fury, honestly, if I were to guess, I feel like he's never going to fight Usyk. So I think if he was going to do it, he would have already done it by now. I think he's going to make so much money from the Ngannou fight that he might, like I said, just call it quits, hang up the gloves for good.
Yeah, I definitely don't see there being much after because I agree. I mean, of course, I'd like to see him fight Usyk, but it doesn't feel like there's anything left to prove for Tyson Fury because he's already just so beyond iconic. But I'd like to definitely, if I'm going to see any fight, Ngannou would be interesting to see if he gets a dub in that fight, where that's going to be like the biggest story one of the biggest ever, because it's like the ultimate getting back at Dana the way he does if he wins that, and also showing up boxing. It just makes it so interesting, the thought of that being a possibility. So yeah, you cannot discredit Francis Ngannou, and people want to talk about the injuries he had at the end of his time in the UFC, but I do remember him when he lost to Stipe the first time, watching and being like, I think this guy was just not ready for the moment, but knew he had the tools to do it at that time. Whereas it's kind of with Cyril Gane right now is, what's he going to do after what happened with John Jones? I mean, people do get caught. Kamaru Usman got caught early in his career. Colby did. I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be Gane will recover fine, but do you think he'll ever touch the belt?
I've never been too high on Gane. I mean, everybody was so criminally overrating him, in my opinion. I mean, he's a good fighter, but he's so new to the sport. He's a lot newer than all these other guys that have been doing it their whole life. I don't see him touching heavyweight gold in his career. I mean, who knows? He might prove me wrong, but if I were to guess, I think Sergey Pavlovich is more of a threat to John Jones or Stipe than Gane is. I think Gane is a good fighter, though. He's definitely going to stay at the top of the division. I would like to see him versus Stipe if Stipe chooses to do one more fight. I don't know if he will. But yeah, we got so many great fights in boxing and PFL, Bellator, Karate Combat, UFC, all these great promotions that are just growing and growing. It's a fast-growing sport. It's never been a better time to be a fan of combat sports, man. I will be at PFL the next few days providing coverage there. Madison Square Garden, that's going to be another great event. My boy Shane Burgos headlining the event.
Yes.
The playoffs. There's just so many great fights, so many great fighters, and so many great people, and I want to keep doing my role to help connect these fighters and the athletes with the fans and share their stories and do whatever I could do, my small little part to keep this sport growing, because I love this sport and I think it's the best sport. And I think one day before I'm off this planet, it will be the biggest sport in the world, because everybody loves violence. It's human nature to love fighting. So I'm going to have to go in a second, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time with me. Thank you for having me on, bro.
Yeah, brother.
I bet we'll do this again one day. And yeah, bro, I'm looking forward to the future. What do you got to say? You looking forward to the future too?
Absolutely. I got to say, also, shout out to Temba, the fighter that The Rock got the house for, because that is such a good dude. I've hit him up actually and told him that he had an inspiring story. And I was surprised, got a response, because you just never know if people will or not, if they control their own profiles. But such a good guy. And that was, to hear that news, I like to share that kind of stuff like you do, because I'm happy to see this sport grow into already what it's grown into. But I agree, it's going to be the biggest sport on the planet, probably when you and I leave it, man. And I would love to do one of these again. I've had, last year after the first Adesanya fight I had, or Adesanya and Alex, the first one in the UFC, I had Bane on, actually an interesting guy for sure. But dude, you're doing this sport well, represented the way you do it. And I'd like to see that keep going because I've been, I've done stuff like this since like 2017, and where the technology has gone even in that time. You've got your spin on it, man, and you got it down, and keep that going because you for sure back it up, my brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'll be with Bane tomorrow and all week at PFL. I'm actually going to interview him tomorrow and hear a little bit about his story. So
yes,
tune into that. Tune into PFL this week, man. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yes, and I fully endorse that. I am the Wildcard Comedy from Wildcard Arts and Entertainment signing out with Rush MMA. Thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Thank you, man. Be good, brother. Be good. Thank
you as well, man. Tell him I said what's up, man. Good to see Oh, yeah.
Mid-40s. I think we're gonna have to wait and see how that fight goes before.
It's just...
My mind. Yeah, what's happening? Connor, thanks for taking the call. So, I'm the smoke. And how do you feel about last night, Connor? what's the crack like? Smiles.
What's going on, everybody? Finn, that was... Sam Kennison.
What's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, brother? Good to be doing this with you, man. It was a pretty good choice for a weekend too, because I fortunately caught the tough finale. Hmm.